from Renaissance-style chateaux, grand country estates, architectural glass masterpieces.
These are the remarkable homes
Simply breathtaking.
and magnificent landmarks
One day, my son, all this will be yours.
at the very heart of Britain's spectacular history.
I have never seen one like this.
Join me
I need to get there. With all speed. Onwards, driver.
and a host of celebrities
Oh, crikey.
with a passion for the past
Kaboom! Wish me luck.
as we travel the length and breadth of the nation,
It is between the walls.
and with unparalleled behind-the-scenes access.
From the highest heights
Now I'm through my blind panic.
to the deepest depths.
We'll uncover the secrets
Oh, my goodness.
still hidden within these breathtaking buildings.
These are the places that nobody else gets to see.
And explore the riches
How spectacular.
and treasures of one of our most loved institutions.
This is an amazing story. Come on, I want to know the end. I want to know the end.
Welcome to the secrets of the National Trust. This week I'm in Rothbury, Northumberland, a place of outstanding natural beauty just north of Newcastle, where I have above and below ground access to one of the most luxurious and innovative houses run by the National Trust. Cragside. Its surrounding landscape has been transformed by the planting of over 7 million trees. But the real surprise comes from the Tudor Revival house, jutting out from the crag. Simply breathtaking. This spectacular house was built by one of Britain's greatest industrialists, William Armstrong, a commoner who rose to become one of the most influential men of his time. He became Lord Armstrong and not only built this house, but transformed it with the greatest technical advances of the day. Here, he pioneered hydroelectricity, making it the first home ever to be powered by renewable energy, bringing modern living to the Victorian era. And all of this made 19th century Cragside the world's very first eco-home. Coming up, I'm tunnelling underground within Cragside's hidden foundations.
It was assumed that secrets of the National Trust would be rather more glamorous than this.
Releasing the power of water, Armstrong's secret energy supply.
You can really feel the power of the water because of this thundering roar.
And leafing through royal paintings so precious they haven't even been seen by the experts.
It's so exciting for me to see this book.
All to discover why Cragside was described as the palace of a modern magician. And to find out more about how Cragside's technology was taken into the 20th century, Peter Purvis discovers a castle that took Armstrong's innovations and ran away with them.
It looks pretty dangerous to me.
And with Cragside influenced greatly by the arts and crafts movement, Angela Rippon is off to the home of its main designer to unearth prints hidden for over a century. While Miriam O'Reilly gets to see a rarely glimpsed side of Cragside from its treetops.
That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Tree.
It's a truly awe-inspiring place.
The first thing you feel when you come into the grounds of Cragside is the atmosphere. It's created by this mysterious house, surrounded by startling trees. It's enchanting.
To take me into this fascinating world, I'm meeting the Trust's Andrew Sawyer, who's worked at Cragside for nearly 30 years.
Go on in.
It's an astonishing place, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not only is he going to show me around this magnificent house,
The time and the money this must have taken.
Oh, yes.
he's also going to tell me about William Armstrong, the industrial innovator who changed the world.
So this is his study?
Yes, it is indeed.
Wonderful, quiet enclave.
Yes.
You see him being in here. There's a great arts and crafts influence here, isn't there?
There is, and of course, the house is largely built in the arts and crafts movement. In
William
the
Morris
1880s.
patterns.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's him, presumably, is it?
Yes, as a young man of about 21.
Very handsome.
He is, yes, because we all see him as an old man, really, in lots of pictures. But it's nice to see him as a youth.
And if you're a powerful man, you need a powerful desk. That is definitely a powerful desk. So what brought William Armstrong to Rothbury, to this part of Northumberland?
Well, he was a very sickly child. He had terrible chest problems. He wasn't really meant to survive. So his father sent young William up to take the country air to get away from all that industrial pollution in Newcastle. He absolutely adored it, and he learned to fish here.
So it worked, in effect.
It did, and he really took to the water, and he was in the water all the time.
This obviously sowed a seed. I mean, water was to be the driving force of his life, wasn't it?
Yes, it was become an all-consuming passion. He took so much notice of the water and how the water ran.
And its power.
He wanted to make water more efficient so that it could be used as an energy force.
Do you think, in a way, when he came here fishing then, the seed was sown that one day the ambition would be to have a house here?
He just adored Rothbury. And he said, in this very room, actually, that if it hadn't have been for Cragside and Rothbury, he wouldn't have survived.
Armstrong's childhood passion for water ultimately brought him astounding industrial success. He pioneered hydroelectricity and invented the hydraulic crane, which revolutionized shipbuilding worldwide. And early innovations in armaments would later make Armstrong one of the richest men in Europe, allowing him to focus his attention on Cragside, transforming it into his perfect home. He even installed a groundbreaking 19th century central heating system. To discover more, Andrew is taking me into the depths of the building, hidden from public view.
Taking you to a bit of Cragside that no one ever sees. So we're going to get down and dirty in subterranean Cragside.
I didn't expect this.
We're heading into locked-away, secret subterranean tunnels which run beneath the basement at Cragside.
The words of Oliver Twist. Awfully dark down there.
Cragside really is the house where modern living began. He put in a complete central heating system throughout the house.
I would assume that secrets of the National Trust would be rather more glamorous than this. God, where are we? Wow. Oh, I didn't expect this. I thought single pipes running onto the floor, but great banks and batteries of them heating all this space.
It's just phenomenal, really.
But look on the pipes there. Sir W.G. Armstrong, via Blythe and Tyne Railway. Clearly, they're all stacked up at the railway station.
Yes, you know, they're all being transported. They've probably been lifted by a hydraulic crane.
They'd have to be, or he wouldn't have them, would they?
Yeah. There's grills around the rooms. Hot air rises, and it rises through those grills and heats the room.
You can see RSJs holding up great slabs of stone.
This is all built before all that opulence on top is built. That's so modern building. It's all designed. And it was so fundamental to what he wanted in this house. And then the system expands on the upper floors into radiators and little loops of pipes. Imagine radiators in 1870, 1880.
It really was the cutting edge of 19th century technology, wasn't it?
It was, and you've got to imagine all the hot water coursing through this system. It was absolutely red hot down here. Lord Armstrong's one of the richest men in Europe by the time he's creating all this. So sky was the limit, but he wanted to really make it a modern home, something very special.
So did he bring to bear at Cragside all that innovation that he was pioneering?
He did. He was bringing all his past knowledge, but he was looking to the future.
Armstrong wanted to make Cragside a futuristic home. There was a telephone system throughout the house. The kitchen was fully mechanised, being one of the first private residences in the world to use an automated dishwasher. And there were even Turkish baths. But one question still preoccupied him.
How could he use energy more efficient here in this very home that he's creating? And of course, the very room we're standing in at the moment is the first room in the world to be lit by Joseph Swan's incandescent light bulb.
No.
Powered by the power of water.
Was that a first?
It was, yes.
Gosh.
These are the very lamps. They were oil lamps beforehand,
Yeah.
and he converted them to the electric light.
Astonishing that they're still here all this time on. Was there some special kind of ceremony?
There was. Lord Armstrong chose the youngest member of staff, who was Andrew Crozier. He was the page boy. He was only 10. And Lord Armstrong thought that he should choose the youngest because they would remember the moment the longest.
And did he? How long did he live?
He did. He lived till he was 86.
So when did he die?
He died in 1956.
That recently, so right the way up to 1956, he was able to say, I was the first person to have turned on electricity powered by water, hydroelectricity.
He was indeed.
Why was Armstrong so obsessed with renewable energy?
Well, the very year he came here in 1863, he predicted that all the coal reserves in this country would have been mined out within 212 years. And he thought we need to find alternatives.
A man of great prescience and foresight, he wasn't wrong.
He wasn't, no.
You see, we think we invented the idea of renewable energy. Armstrong was talking about it in the 1880s.
At the heart of all his achievements, there is one constant theme: water. It's as important to Cragside today as it was in the 19th century, and we've come to the shores of this energy source to discover the mechanical secrets behind how water drives Cragside.
Cragside is surrounded by lakes, Andrew. I presume these were all part of this way of generating power.
There were the fuel tanks, so Lord Armstrong could achieve this great raw power.
How?
Which I'll show you here.
So this road is in effect a dam?
It is. If you stand there,
Right.
and we put it into motion.
So what are we doing apart from walking around in a circle?
A gate valve at the bottom of this, what we call the penstock. But as the gate rises, the water starts to flush through.
Over the road?
Over the road, yeah.
Armstrong used water in this way to create hydroelectricity, first to power his industries and then to drive the turbine that made Cragside such an innovative home.
You can really feel the power of the water because of this thundering roar of an entire lake being sent through a pipe just 2 or 3 feet in diameter.
That's the potential Lord Armstrong saw.
Saw this, thought, I can harness that power, it's always going to be there.
Yeah, and he said it would be in there in memoriam. It would go on forever.
So it does.
How Armstrong generated his homemade electricity is an awe-inspiring feat of engineering. Water from the lakes was released and piped down to the powerhouse, where it flowed through a turbine which activated a generator to produce electricity.
So, is Cragside still powered by water?
Very much so. Not this system, something brand new for Cragside.
No. So the water's coming in at the top, turning this, and this is creating the power.
It is. Just exactly the same as in Armstrong's principle. He had his in a turbine when he operated his hydroelectricity. This is a magnificent new iteration of that. It means we can have hydroelectricity here at Cragside today.
In the true spirit of Armstrong.
Having created hydroelectricity at Cragside, Armstrong's eco-friendly home became an engineering legend. His power revolution sent tremors all round the world and was a key inspiration for other great men. Julius Drew, businessman, retailer and entrepreneur, built the last castle ever to be erected in Britain, and there he followed on what Armstrong had begun. To investigate, Peter Purvis travels to this futuristic fort.
I'm here at Castle Drogo, high above the Tean Gorge in Devon, where a massive restoration programme is in its 5th year of progress. What little bits you can see of it, it does look pretty ancient, but believe it or not, this castle was only built 100 years ago. Castle Drogo near Drew Stainton was designed in the early 1900s by the celebrated architect Edwin Lutyens. Famed for his creation of the cenotaph in London, he's been described by some as the greatest British architect of the 20th century. Briar Mason, the House and Collections manager here, knows all about the man who commissioned the build, Julius Drew. So, Briar, tell me about Julius Drew. How did he come to afford such a grand place?
Well, he founded what was called the Home and Colonial Stores. And really that was an early form of supermarket. So he had a huge chain of shops right across the country, well over 100 stores. And he retired to the life of a country gentleman, aged just 33.
Julius Drew had the money and the connections to have his dream home built to spec, with every whim catered for. So what did Julius do with his spare time once he'd retired?
Well, Julius, with his wife Frances, of course, travelled extensively across Europe and stayed in the most luxurious of hotels. And of course, they came with all the modern luxuries that you could possibly want. So whether that's hot and cold running water, or lifts to get you around the building, and of course, telephones in every room.
So gadgets.
Gadgets generally, and when they were deciding what they wanted to go into their home, of course, they wanted to have that level of luxury and of course could afford it.
This is a butler's pantry, isn't it? It's full of all sorts of bits. What? Go on, show me.
So this is our electric teacup warmer.
Fascinating.
It's operated by the weight of the teacup and the tea. So if you lifted the teacup off in order to drink it,
yes,
it would switch the electricity off, so you didn't risk burning yourself.
So you didn't make your tea in that, though? That kept
No,
it
it just
warm?
kept it
so
warm.
You always had a hot cup?
You always had a hot cup.
That's good.
And then, of course, when you replace it, it sinks back down again and switches it back on again.
How clever.
This moves us on perhaps to the electric candlestick. Now you...
What's special about that?
Yeah, so you can't actually see a cable coming out of it, but it does have a bulb in. This is designed to go with an electric tablecloth.
Don't be silly.
Yeah. So underneath your crisp white linen was a baize cloth which had a network of wires in it. You then plugged this directly into that network of wires, and it is hiding its secret underneath. And there is the socket.
A socket underneath.
The electricity is 240 volts DC.
It looks pretty dangerous to me.
Yes.
I can see why that didn't really catch on. It's a clever idea.
It's a clever idea. The only precaution they took was that they used to make the children eat off trays just in case they spilt their drink or whatever and electrocuted themselves.
That is a crazy gadget. To power all his incredible gadgets, Julius needed a supply of electricity, and he didn't have far to go. 700 feet below the castle, the River Tean proved the perfect source. He took the hydroelectric baton from Lord Armstrong and developed the technology innovated at Cragside, bringing it into the 20th century. I'm off on a short journey to a part of the estate that visitors won't normally see. Drew's seat of power, his hydroelectric system, being restored for the first time in 23 years. Building surveyor Wes Key has worked on the hydro project since 1983. This unassuming building, also designed by Lutyens, is where the electricity was generated for Castle Drogo until 1994, and will do so once again using the original 1920s turbines.
There's a couple of rods to put onto the guide vanes that control the speed of the turbine.
Yes. This small yet vital piece of the puzzle will control the amount of power produced.
So what we're going to do is we're going to actually link the last two pins together so that when these arms move, they actually all move synchronised.
Understood.
So they're all
Yes.
synchronised together, and they can open and close.
Go on then, show me what we've got to do.
Right, so we need to get one of these pins.
That lifted up to there, and that drops into there, and the pin goes through that.
In there.
Haven't quite got it in the right... There we are. It's in. Is it going in? Needs the hammer. There we go. There you go. I must say I feel really energised by the fantastic work that's going on here at Castle Drogo to restore this eco-friendly power system to its former glory. And I'm sure Julius Drew would smile if he realised how his passions have passed through generations across the estate.
Lord Armstrong not only filled Cragside with revolutionary technology, he also embraced the latest design wave of the British arts and crafts movement, exhibiting incredible decorative features throughout the house, including William Morris designs, which are still prevalent today. This helped make Cragside an enchanting palace, attracting dynasties from around the world. And they even entertained royalty. To give me the regal scoop, I'm meeting Lord Armstrong's biographer, Henrietta Heald.
That's Armstrong himself there.
Yeah. It's astonishing what he's got and how he displays it.
Yes.
In 1884, William Armstrong got to showcase his magnificent home when he hosted the future King Edward VII and his family. He pulled out all the stops, entertaining them in the spectacular drawing room.
Goodness me, it's astonishing.
It is quite something, isn't it?
Isn't it? I mean, what sort of preparations did the Armstrongs make for the royal visit?
Well, the most important thing they did was to make sure that this room was completed on time.
So they built this. Rolling out a red carpet is one thing. Building a fireplace like that, the royals must have been hugely impressed. You know, when you stand in front of it, it's absolutely monstrous, massive, huge
Well,
thing.
it is huge. It's made out of several different kinds of Italian marble. It weighs 10 tons. It is very different in character from other rooms. In
Much
the
less
house.
arts and crafts influence
Yes,
in here.
yes.
Yeah.
But, you know, it needed to be because he was, Armstrong had reached the stage where he could entertain royalty.
Must have been a great honour for him.
Oh, it was. No, it was absolutely because, you know, he was recognised. I mean, he was a commoner, and it was very unusual for the royal family to stay with a commoner.
What made the Prince and Princess of Wales want to come here as opposed to local nobility and gentry where they would normally have stayed, say, Alnwick Castle or
Yes,
something
well,
like
actually,
that?
they knew about him from quite an early stage. Queen Victoria he met when he was quite young. And, of course, they knew about all the marvellous inventions that he had on show at the house.
So they'd heard about that, and Edward VII, as he then became the Prince of Wales, wanted to see what was going on.
Partly that, and of course because it was very luxurious as well. And they liked their luxury, the Prince and Princess of Wales. Armstrong had hot and cold water, they had proper baths, they had central heating, and not to say the electric light. I mean, the electric light was the most astonishing thing, because they didn't have that, of course, in Buckingham Palace.
What was the reaction of the locals?
Well, I mean, of course, they were very excited to have this visit from the royal family, and they'd never seen anything like it before, I don't think. So they even commissioned a special book of watercolours from the local artist who was a favourite of Armstrong's to commemorate the occasion, and this is it.
Rarely seen and hidden from public view, This incredibly delicate book was commissioned by the Rothbury locals to commemorate the royal family's visit to Cragside,
Oh, now this is special.
where they can be seen enjoying its magnificent grounds and splendid interior.
They're standing where we're standing, right in
Yes,
front of this fireplace.
just at that very point.
So we've got Prince of Wales there with his beard, and here's Princess
yes.
Alexandra.
And, of course, his children.
Very
and
relaxed
they're-
out the front then, so it's quite low-key here.
They couldn't be more relaxed, could they, reading a newspaper?
There's
And-
Prince of Wales, and these must be, presumably, the two sons.
Yes, George and
Future
Eddie.
George V and Duke of Clarence, Eddie, who died
That's
early.
right.
It's a lovely bit of history, isn't it?
Oh, it's so exciting for me to see this book in its original because
You've
I've
not seen it before?
No, it's so precious that it's obviously kept wrapped up.
So the royal visit then was clearly a success.
It certainly was. I mean, you can tell actually from the pictures, can't you? Because there was a sort of intimacy there. It's almost like he was part of the family. They were so relaxed with him.
A special time for Rothbury, a special time for Cragside, and a special time for me, actually. I think it's absolutely wonderful to feel that you're standing on the spot where future Queen Alexandra sat with her children and looked at what we're looking at now. Magical.
The luxuries inside this futuristic house were not the only draw for royalty and other eminent guests who visited Cragside. It was also the lush and flourishing landscape that wowed the highest ranks of society. But Cragside's dramatic setting wasn't always blessed with such an abundance of trees.
In fact, when Armstrong first came here, the land was bare and barren, but he transformed it into a fantasy landscape where the Himalayas meet North America.
The planting of pines and other conifers on the once barren moorland created what's known as a pinetum. And Miriam O'Reilly's branched out from the main house to explore the story behind the trees here at Cragside.
The trees you see here are over 100 years old, and it's an extraordinary and well-established collection.
The Armstrongs planted a staggering 7 million trees and shrubs, a testament to their wealth. Now their pinetum boasts the UK's tallest Scots pines that tower over the landscape at 40 metres. Caring for these and the other grand centurions is the National Trust's Chris Clues.
You must get to know these trees so well that even just looking at them, you could possibly tell if they were ailing at all.
Yeah, because we're based here all the time, you can pick up things beforehand as well, so you tend to spot the signs and faults that are coming.
The condition of the trees is constantly monitored by the team here, and Dr. Chris is checking up on the health of one specimen in particular.
This is the patient.
It is. This one in particular has got signs of fungus on the outside of it.
Gosh, it looks pretty ugly.
It's not brilliant stuff.
Is this inside the tree?
It'll be grown into the roots, yeah, and into the main stem. We're using this piece of kit here. Basically, we're transmitting sound waves through the tree, a bit like an ultrasound. It gives us a reading of what's actually happening in the interior of the tree.
Let's hope it's good news.
Sonic sensors are attached to a number of small pins that have been inserted into the outer bark round the whole tree.
I'll put the metallic cap back on.
Tap.
And then tap how many times?
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
What do we know? What's happening here?
The green tends to be a transitional period where it is starting to go from a good wood downwards.
But this is a really big area. It's taken over right at the heart.
It is,
of the
yes.
tree.
Unfortunately, long term it would have to come down.
That's really sad news, isn't it, considering how old it is?
As a child, I climbed trees for fun, but for Chris, it's his day job. So I'm joining him on a routine check on another of his patients.
What does it look like in terms of health so far, Chris?
It's been surviving quite well, this one. It's had a few hard winters, but it's going well.
I think I can honestly say this is the furthest of a tree I've ever climbed.
And you get a view across to the house forecourt behind us.
What do you think Lord and Lady Armstrong, if they could see us now, what do you think their reaction would be?
I like to think they're happy with sort of what's been achieved and their legacy's continuing, and we're doing what they ultimately set out to do. Is, you know, we are looking after the estate they created.
It's been a privilege to have such a unique perspective on these giants of the Cragside Pinetum.
That was absolutely fantastic, Chris. Thank you so much. Ah, thank you, tree.
Today I've been exploring the secret side of 19th century Cragside in Northumberland, an outstanding piece of Tudor revival architecture. It was home to water wizard Lord Armstrong, who pioneered hydroelectricity to power the house, which he filled with electrical gadgetry, including an underground heating system, a lift, and even a dishwasher. This building was so far ahead of its time that a future king even requested to come and stay here.
What do you think Armstrong would have made of today's advances in technology?
Oh, he would have absolutely adored it. He loved communications. He was a very early adopter of the telephone. He had telephones right across this estate, right from the early 1880s, which was quite remarkable. And of course, he talked about shortening the English language as it's written, foreshortening words, very much like text. And he was talking about this in the 1860s.
He must also be remembered, surely, though, as a man who loved art, if not quite as much as technology, then certainly in his leisure time. The whole place is packed with arts and crafts. I've seen William Morris wallpaper and fabric everywhere, and the influences in the architecture too.
Yes, he loved art. All his paintings were contemporary. He loved all the up-and-coming designs. He adored it.
Armstrong filled almost every room at Cragside with decorative and unique examples from the arts and crafts movement. This was all the rage in the late 1800s and was influenced greatly by William Morris, one of its main pioneers, who stood for traditional romantic craftsmanship that harked back to a simpler time. And Angela Rippon is venturing to his home in Bexley Heath to unearth some of his long-lost treasures.
Compared with the rather bland stucco and brick cottages and houses that surrounded this part of Kent in the 1800s, the Red House was seen as dazzling. Its vivid, vibrant red bricks absolutely shone out in all their glory.
In his day, William Morris was better known as a writer and socialist than as a designer. Newly married to Jane Burden in 1859, he wanted to build a family home that embodied his beliefs.
Many of his designs were based on the inspiration that he got from the precision and the innate beauty of all of the flowers and the plants and the birds that were all around him.
Morris's Red House was the first independent commission for 25-year-old architect and lifelong friend Philip Webb. The Trust's Robin Finney is giving me an exclusive preview of the original Red House contract documents between Philip Webb and William Morris, which have never been seen before by the public.
Is it true that this whole place was designed on the back of a tourist map?
So it was, some original sketches were done in a copy of Murray's Guide to France. So they were on a boys' holiday, boating down the Seine, as you do. And Morris was really inspired by the medieval cathedrals they saw. So he just turned to his friend Philip Webb and said, "Build me a house very medieval in spirit." And they did a few sketches then and there.
Right. One of the bits that I actually love is this, where it says, the whole of the roofs to be covered with good, plain, bright red tiles. So already they've decided it's going to be a red house.
And Morris elsewhere in here is so particular that they're to be handmade, they're to be locally sourced. So you can even see that idea behind the arts and crafts movement, even in the detail in the contract from that stage.
So Morris was a bit of a rebel.
He was a rebel for his time, yeah, but if you look back, he's going back to earlier times. He didn't want mass production. He was rebelling against the industrial age and actually wanting to go back to a much more medieval way of life.
Everything within the house was also to be handcrafted. Furniture, tiles, windows, even inconspicuous details such as handles and hinges. Morris encouraged his family and guests to paint features in the house and to leave their signatures etched in its glass panes.
I've got something to show you just behind this curtain.
In the course of their restoration and conservation, the team here often uncover bespoke works of art, both big and small. Robin is keen to share with me one of their latest finds, not on show to the public.
So this is our latest pattern discovery in the house, so people don't really know about this yet. And it's been very damaged by the layers of wallpaper that have been put on by owners afterwards. But what you can see here is the centre of the flower.
So what is the importance, the significance of what you're finding?
The significance of it is those first ever Morris repeating patterns, and you can see from them where it developed into those wallpapers.
So this was before Morris actually got round to designing wallpaper himself?
Actually, Morris had no wallpaper in this house.
Nowhere at all?
Everything in this house was painted straight onto the plaster, and it was actually the process of decorating this house that made him go, we could make a business out of this and create Morris & Co. And the first 3 wallpapers that went into production for the firm were designed here.
Morris's close circle of friends, many of them pre-Raphaelite artists, contributed to the decor of the house, not only with painted motifs, but also with grand wall paintings. Edward Burne-Jones depicted wedding scenes from a medieval English romance, while the story of Genesis, discovered in 2012, has been attributed in part to Dante Rossetti's wife, Lizzie Siddall.
Hi, Angela.
What are you up to?
I'm checking our wall painting for damage.
The Trust's Ellie Bagnall regularly carries out checks on these fragile wall paintings.
With a torch, we use something called raking light. So we put the light at a 45-degree angle against the wall painting, and it shows up damage and cracking and where the paint is coming away from the wall. Professional conservators come in and they touch it up with watercolour. So we use a paint that is non-permanent, so it can be reversed.
This is just one of the many tasks that Ellie and her team of volunteers perform as part of Conservation Tuesday, a rigorous scheme carried out every week.
Volunteers clean the house from top to toe, but not with a duster. They use specific brushes depending on the materials they use. So hog's hair for firmer and more sturdy items, all the way down to delicate pony and goat's hair for those really delicate surfaces.
William Morris said, "The past is not dead, it is living in us and will be alive in the future, which we are now helping to make." And that's a sentiment that I think not only sums up this rather beautiful red house, but perhaps more importantly, the conservation work they're doing here to ensure that William Morris's work really does survive well into the future.
Cragside is another house whose innovations will survive well into the future, but for its creator, William Armstrong, as well as his love for arts and crafts and his technical inventions, he's also associated with something far more deadly.
Why do you think Armstrong isn't as revered, as well known in the world as Joseph Swan, as Thomas Edison?
I think it's very much the armaments connection. And he was the first British arms dealer, which of course was international, and he was thought of as the merchant of death after the First World War.
Is that fair?
I don't think it is fair. He very much thought that the weapons he was producing were going to be a deterrent and that there wasn't that close combat between the men and that war wouldn't be as brutal. But of course, with the First World War, they saw that it actually was very brutal.
Of course, he died in 1900, which sort of, 14 years before the First World War.
Well, absolutely. And of course, Armstrong contended that it was the politicians that sent people to war, not the engineer. But he brought so much to the world, not just armaments.
For me, Lord Armstrong was a fascinating individual, and his fervent imagination and ingenuity can be seen throughout Cragside, making it a very special place. When the National Trust opened the doors to Cragside in 1979, it became something we could all enjoy. And any visitor can't help but be inspired, first by this very fine house and landscape, and then by the man who built them.
His career wasn't without controversy, but in Cragside, he created a modern house, and with it, helped pioneer renewable energy.
He was a scientist, an industrial titan, and a technical innovator of genius.
Wow!
Which makes Cragside a groundbreaking house for the 19th century, and one that's still just as relevant today.